Okay, in this tutorial we're going to have some real fun. We're going to talk about destruction. In fact, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to destroy the Earth. And there it is. There's the Earth, and we're going to put it into our layout. And there it is down there on the dice table. And I'm going to move it up and I'm going to put it over here. Nice and high. And that's our planet Earth. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to drop that onto the dice table, and instead of having it bouncing, we're going to have it shatter. Okay, so to understand that, we have to go back to Modeler for a second. Now Modeler, this is what the Earth looks like. It's basically a nice clean globe. So if we go into the Multiply tab, you will see way down here we have this little tab called Destroy. I find this is the easiest way to do this. And there's one button in there called Fracture. And if I hit that, we can see that we get this. And essentially it's a very simple dialog box, and we're going to keep the default set for the most part. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take cell count from 100 down to a lot less. The more pieces that you make the fracture, the longer it's going to take to render. And as you might have noticed by now, some of these rendering times can take a while, for the computer to figure itself out. So we're going to stick around 44 pieces, and I'm going to hit OK. And there it is. You can see the fractures have been created. Now it doesn't affect the actual surface. Now you'll notice something else. It has created these in a new layer. So we're going to go to the original layer and we're going to delete it. Then we're going to go to this layer with the new Earth, and we're going to select all of those polygons, and we're going to cut them, and we're going to paste them here. And so now our Earth is ready to be fractured. And if we go back here, we don't notice much of a difference. So then, if we go to our effects tools, and we make this a static layer, we don't have to get more complicated than that. Then we go to our Earth, and for now we're going to make it a rigid body just like we've done before. So, as you can see then, if we allow the physics to take the ball to the table, it just does its thing. It lands, and let's give it some time here. So let's say, give it 500 frames. And we see that the ball strikes the table and rolls around a little bit, and that's basically it. So no destruction yet. But if we go into our bullet dynamics and choose item properties, what we're going to do here is we're going to turn that from a rigid layer into a parts layer. And we'll keep this open here. And as you can see, the glue strength is only 10%. The glue is what holds the parts together. And all the rest of the stuff we'll leave alone, the linear damping, the friction, the bounciness. But let's see, just being a parts layer, what that would do. So now here we are, and if we take our pointer, we can see the Earth is destroyed. And you can see that the shards go off in all different directions as soon as it hits the ground. And the more you calculate it, the more the shards fan out. But there it is. Now, while we're on this subject, if we scoot in here a little bit, you can see on the surface editor, they've given you two possible surfaces to work with on the planet. The interior and the planet. Now the planet is the one that has the Earth UV. So if you can see, there it is. Now the interior, on the other hand, has no real surface. Now what we could do is we could make it a different color. So let's say we create that little fiery magma look. You can get that. or basically anything else that you want. For example, let's say we wanted to give that a look like brick. We could basically put in something that's cubic, even though it isn't necessary at this point. And if I load an image, I happen to have some brick texture here. And we do automatic sizing. And it's there. It's not very obvious, but it has that sandstone look to it. And so, ultimately, no matter where you look at this image from, you're going to see that same breaking pattern. Bang. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to destroy a more complicated object. And we're going to destroy a nice marble top table. And to start with, we're going to create a floor for it. So if we go to the Create tab, and we go to Box, I'm going to make a nice floor. And we're going to make that floor nice and big. And give it some depth. So that's going to be our floor. And on the next layer, we're going to create the body of the table. And so we're going to make a box, and let's say the table looks kind of like that. It'll be about that thick. And we'll put it up here a little bit, be about that tall. So that's going to be the body of the table. And we're going to cut out the center of it, because marble top tables generally have like a structure underneath, but they're not solid. So we'll turn off box here, go to the next layer, put this in the background, and we'll make another box, and we'll just create that frame structure. And like that. Then we'll put that in the foreground, that in the background, construct, Boolean, subtract, and that's it. And we'll get rid of this, and we've got our table. So then we'll create some legs for it. And the legs have to connect the frame to the floor. So get a good look at that. We'll just take our box tool, and we'll make sure those legs aren't bigger than the frame. And we'll make sure that they extend right there. And of course, make sure that they cover the bottom of the length of the table, or the width of the table. And one more. And so now the table has legs. And we'll just go ahead and do a Boolean subtract, or Boolean add in this case. And that should do it. I can get rid of these. So now we have the table frame, and we're going to add the surface to it. And the surface will also be a box, be a little bit larger than the rest of it, but it won't be that thick. And we're going to put that right on there. And make sure that it is flush with the surface. And the last object we're going to create here is going to be a brick. How many of you have wanted to drop a brick on a nice marble top table? Well, maybe not all of you. And we're going to put the brick right up here in the sky, right over the table. We'll even put it off the axis of the table. And there we are. So we'll go back to layer 1, and we're going to hit the surface. That's going to be the floor. We'll go to layer 2, hit the surface. That's going to be the table. Layer 3 is going to be the top. And layer 4 is going to be the brick. Then we're going to save this object. We're going to call it table break, and we're going to send that to layout. So there it is. So we go into layout, and we frame the shot. This is in perspective view. And let's get this light out of here. Just pull the light back. That should be good enough. And so there is our basic scene. And we're going to go into surfaces so we can see it a little bit better. And on the table break, I'm going to go to the floor first of all. I'm going to load a nice wooden floor. So we'll load an image of wood. And that will be planar. And we'll find the axis that works, hit automatic sizing, and that looks good. So use that texture. Then we'll go to the table itself, and we're just going to make that kind of a gold looking table. So we'll give that a gold color, and we'll give it specularity, give it glossiness, and reflection. And the top, we're going to give a marble look to it. So we're going to use that as a cubic texture there, and we're going to load the image of marble, which we have right here, and hit automatic sizing, and there it is. Use that texture, and finally the brick, we'll give a brick texture. Cubic, and we have that image of the brick texture right here. Automatic sizing, and that should be good enough. So there we have our scene. And so we start by giving the floor, we go into effects tools, the floor we're going to make a static body. The table we're going to make a static body. The tabletop for now will be a rigid body. And the brick will be a rigid body. So, as you can see, the brick just wants to fall to the floor, and that's all. So, the first thing we're going to deal with is the table itself. We want the table to shatter. So if we go over here, back where we were, and we go to our tabletop layer, we're going to go into multiply, and you'll see fracture there. And we're just going to hit fracture, and we're only going to fracture it into, let's say 40 pieces. And there it is, it's fractured. Now it's fractured in our different layers, so we're going to go to our layer here and delete that. We're going to go to this new layer, select everything, cut it, and paste it into its original layer. And then if we go back to layout, just save the object real quick. If we go back to layout, you'll see that it has applied the fractures. Now this is where it gets kind of important. If we go to our bullet dynamics and go to our item properties, we're going to change that tabletop from a rigid layer to a parts layer. And so We're going to leave the glue strength alone right now. You'll see if you move the pointer even a little bit, and you see automatically it just starts breaking apart. So we don't want it to break yet, we want to make it break. So we start back at the beginning. So we go to our item properties, and I'm going to bring the glue strength up. In fact, I'm going to take the glue strength all the way to, say, 60. Because we want it to be able to break, we just don't want to break it yet. So we want the thing to be able to survive on its own. And that's enough. So at 30 frames, it hasn't gone yet. So now we're going to throw this brick. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to start with the brick in this position. So we're going to take the dynamics away, and we're just going to go ahead and move that out of frame. Then we want that object, by the time it gets to frame 15, we want to move that to there. So now it gives us some spring action. Maybe not even that far. Just move it back a little bit. And the idea is we want it to fall on the table. Then we re-add the dynamics, make that a rigid body. And then we recalculate what happens. And as you can see, the brick falls, strikes the table, and the table breaks. So, if we look at this, the surfaces crash. And that looks pretty realistic. And if we were to turn this to virtual progressive render, you can see that it looks even better. So, if we were to set up a camera, we were to move in on this. Let's say we're even to look at it from the opposite angle. Let's say we look at it from over here. So this is our beautiful table. So this is our beautiful table, and there it goes. As you can see, you can do some pretty interesting things with breakages. You can make all kinds of explosions happen and all kinds of amazing things occur. All having to do with physics, weight, and things like that, inside surfaces, outside surfaces. Really, the sky is the limit. And so I certainly invite you to try these things out and play around with it. And I'll leave you with a final example of what can be done with complex camera angles, physics, and movement.